Welcome to Bigfoot Society. If you have Bigfoot activity to report from the same areas discussed in this episode, please reach out to me directly after this episode. And if you'd like to be on the podcast to discuss a personal Bigfoot encounter, please reach out to me directly at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Do you wish there was more Bigfoot Society to listen to every week? Well, there is now. If you become a supporting member over at Patreon, you get a special members-only episode every single week on Wednesdays, and sometimes even more episodes. Head on over to patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. And now let's get on with the show. All right, Bigfoot Society, we've got the privilege of talking to Yvonne today. She reached out through email. She is from the great state of Oregon, reached out to me to share some things that have happened to her over the years. So it's a privilege to have you on the show, Yvonne, and I've been looking forward to talking to you for a little bit now. So how's it going?
Well, thank you. Everything's going well.
Fantastic. Man, I was just, I love the state of Oregon, especially the area that I believe we're going to be talking about, that general area. I was just watching some video. I can't wait to get out there, but I'm going to stop talking about that, and I'm going to go ahead and pass things over to you so you have the time to share what you've experienced over the years, and I'll let you take from here.
Okay. This my first experience. I've always believed. I've always been a believer, but this first experience was totally unexpected. And we were camping in a campground. We had our boat with us. We were on the lake, and we had been camping for a couple days. And on this particular evening, it was quiet. And earlier in the evening, we were laying on our boat trailer, just looking at the stars in the parking lot. And after a while, my husband says, "Gosh, I have the feeling of being watched from the tree line." And I said, "Oh my gosh, that same feeling just came over me." And we didn't really think much about it. And we took our 3-year-old son and we headed back to our campsite, and where friends were there, and everybody was getting hunkered down for the night and getting ready to go to bed. And I also went to bed, but I just couldn't relax and go to sleep. And so I told my husband, I said, "I'm going to get up for a minute and just sit by the lake and cool out for a little bit." And I said, "Come with me." And he says, "No." He goes, "I'm tired. I'm just going to stay here." Our son had fallen asleep. And I said, "Okay." And I go and I take a short trail to, there was a big tree there, and it was a place where I could just look at the lake for a while. And the moon was just starting to come up over the foothills. And before that, it was just really, really dark. And out of nowhere, I hear an immense splash in the lake. And I'm thinking to myself, what huge man just jumped into the lake at 1:00 in the morning. And so as I went to turn, this is really hard to explain. It was like a ultra sensory moment for me. So as I turn, and I'm hearing arm strokes, like something huge is swimming in the water. And I turn, and my foot turns in the gravel and makes the slightest noise. And at the same time, as I'm standing up, this waft of smell, horrible smell, is coming up off of the water. And as I get my bearings and I'm looking over the water and the moonlight is starting to come up over the hillside, I see out by my boat a figure in the water. And it had stopped frozen. I could tell it was standing in the water, but out by where my boat was buoyed, it was well over my head. I know that the water was deep enough to be well over my head. I'm short, I'm 5 foot tall, but this thing was head and shoulders out of the water. And also, I heard what I would call a sigh. It was a very low rumble release of breath, and I could feel it in my gut. It was, and you hear that the term infrasound, like from elephants and things, and there's that low frequency. And that's what I attribute it to. And so I'm standing there, and I know that this thing is standing in the water looking at me, and it dunks down to where just its head is out of the water. And I can't tell you how long I stood there and looked at this thing, and I knew exactly what it was. I could see the silhouette of the shoulders and head before it dunked down in the water. And I need to tell you also that the only reason I knew that this thing was down that low in elevation was because there were forest fires up in the hills above us. And so I don't know if you could call it mind speak or if that's what mind speak is, but the feeling of communication washed over me. The message was, look, I'm just down here for respite from the fires. I'm traveling through. Please leave me in peace. And that's exactly what I did. I just observed it. It observed me. And I would say we were probably, 50 yards away from each other. And the intensity of the moment started to recede, and it just turned and swam off into around the bend of the lake. And that was my very first experience. I was thrilled to have visually been able to see that. And it was just an intense moment for me. The smell, the quietness of the surroundings, except for the splash in the water, all of it. It was just an intense moment, and I've always been grateful for it. But I had no fear. I did not feel it. I didn't feel threatened at all. Didn't feel like I was in any danger. It was a moment of respect, I feel, between me and the individual. It was quite beautiful, actually. So the next morning, going back, I did go back to my tent. And when I got back to our campsite and I'm getting in the tent, my husband says to me, "What was that huge splash in the water?" And at this moment, I could barely speak. I'm stuttering. I'm like, well, if you had been with me and you had your night vision camera with you, we would have had a better view of it. I said, but what I want to tell you is so extreme and so crazy, you're going to laugh. And he goes, what was it? Was it a bear? What was it? I'm just not answering him. And he goes, "Yvonne, was it a Bigfoot?" And I said, "Oh, yes, Joe." And I said, "You can't laugh at me." I said, "But it was," he goes, "Well, I heard the splash." And I said, go out there, go see, go explore it. I wish you would." And he said, "No," he goes, "I'm feeling quite safe with this thin sheet of nylon between whatever you saw and me." And we'll check out the beach in the morning. And I said, okay. And we did check out the beach of the lake the next morning. And on this beach, there's areas of grass, and there's areas of rock, and there's some sand. And we found one footprint, and it was a footprint that you could tell that it had maneuvered along the beach in a way that it wouldn't leave footprints. And the only footprint that we saw was where you could see the foot had slid off of a larger rock into the sand. So it was kind of a partial footprint, but the ball of the foot was very wide, and the back of the foot was more narrow, but it was 2 of my feet in length, and it was very long. It wasn't a full footprint, like I said, but the part of the foot that did sink down into the sand and slid off of the rock, you could tell was a huge, huge foot. And the only other print that we saw was a partial print, like it was on its tiptoes, and that was just barely before the water. And so we had quite a skeptic friend who was camping with us, and when he saw those prints, it made him think. He was like, okay. The other thing that happened I feel is connected totally with the experience is I found a full obsidian arrowhead on the beach that following day. And I still have it. It's beautiful. And unbroken, perfect arrowhead. I didn't see any obsidian other than that in the area. And I'm a rock hound. I like to go where I can find crystals and petrified wood, and I have a large collection of rocks. Some people think I'm crazy, but I love them. And so, yeah, that was my first experience. It has stayed with me. The memory of that is as clear as a bell. I will never forget it. And I treasure that memory. So we're campers. We've camped for years. We taught our kids about the outdoors by camping. And they have grown to love it. So it's a legacy I'm happy to leave with my children. So yeah, that was my first experience. The only other experience that I have had are, throughout the years, I've had the feeling of being watched from tree lines. I've gotten that intense feeling when hiking through the woods. And I'm not saying that every single one of them was because the Sasquatch was watching me, but there is an energy change you can feel in certain areas that really bring up all of your senses, that just feels almost electric or vibrational. So last year, I was a manager of a foster home for boys that have developmental delays, and annually I had started taking them on a camping trip. And so I was getting ready for this camping trip, and I had my nephew was with me, and he going to be with me, and he had volunteered to go for to be of help to me during this camping trip, which was wonderful. And he's always heard my story, and he really wanted to go camping with me and to do this and help me. And so in my mind, I just kind of thought to myself, gosh, wouldn't it be lovely if we had an experience while we were camping? That would be so nice for him to experience that with him. And we got there. We had another person that was a supervising person that was there that was going to be in the campgrounds. And late at night, we decided to go to an open parking lot near the water, where we could see the stars. The meteor showers were supposed to be really heavy at that time. So we went with the intention of just viewing the meteor showers. So we took his car and we parked it, and it was quiet. There was no other cars in the parking lot. And this was in a different area, by the way. This was actually in this was on Green Peter Reservoir, where I've camped there all my life. And and up there, like I said, you sometimes have the feeling of being watched from a tree line if you're like on the lake. I've seen prints there, but it's always been like cougar prints or deer prints, deer tracks in the sand on the lake. Some parts of the lake are more rocky than others. But we were, like I said, the campgrounds, I don't know what is happening in the rest of the country, but funds for keeping up the forest and keeping underbrush clear and things have been slim. And so the forest was very, very, very dense. So as we're laying there on the hood of his car and we're watching the meteor showers, what becomes more prevalent is just a feeling. And neither one of us are saying anything, but I felt almost like my body was just vibrating. It was almost dizzying. And pretty soon he pipes up and he goes, "Auntie." And I said, "Yeah, I'm feeling it too." He goes, "Something's going on." And I said, "Yeah, I'm feeling it too." And he goes, "Should we get in the car?" I said, "Well, maybe." So we both stand up and we're both feeling like this dizzying feeling. And like we're holding onto the hood of the car to get to the doors to open them. And we get in the car and we look at each other. He goes, "You feel that, right?" And I said, "Well, what is it that you're feeling?" He goes, "I feel like I am hyped up, but at the same time, my body isn't like moving like I want it to." And I was like, "You nailed it. That's exactly what I'm feeling." And he goes, "Why?" And I said, "Well, I'm not sure." And our windows were open and we hear not a rock, but smaller, like a pebble, hit the pavement and bounce like just a couple feet in front of the car. And he goes, "What?" He goes, "What kind of animal throws pebbles?" He goes, "And where would that have come from? The sky?" And I said, "No, probably not. It probably came from the tree line." And so we sat there for a few more minutes. The feeling started to feel a little less intense. And as we left, we shone our lights all around the parking lot, but the forest was so dense. I don't know how anyone could have seen anything through the brush. And we go back to our campground and we're still feeling kind of an intense feeling with us. And we get into my little motorhome and we're hunkering down for bed. He goes, "I feel like all the curtains need to be shut really tight." And I said, "I know." He goes, "I feel like any crack in here we're going to be viewed through." And I said, "I know, I'm getting the same feeling." And so we finally fall asleep. And the next morning, one of my foster boys gets up and first thing out of his mouth to me was, "Bigfoot walked around my tent last night." And I said, "What?" I said, "Talk to me. Tell me about that." And he said, "Something kept walking around my tent. And every time I went to look out the window, the screen, darkness came over my eyes." And I said, explain, what do you mean? He said, I would just begin to see something, and then darkness would come over my eyes. He said, but so finally I just gave up and laid still, and the walking sound finally went away. And I said, okay. I said, I believe you. Thank you for telling me. And we went on with our day. And so we were down by the lake after we'd all had our breakfast and got everybody down to the lake. And my best friend, my nephew's mom, was coming to bring her boat, and we were going to spend the day out in the boat. We were very excited. It did not work out. We were all on this boat, and it was going to be kind of a last ride for, she does an adult foster home. And it was kind of going to be like a last ride for one of her very special clients that she'd had for years. And this didn't work out because something had gone wrong in the motor of the boat. So we managed to get all the boys out of the water and get them off with the trailer and get the boat on the trailer and help them send them off on their way so we could get these foster boys in the water and go ahead with our day and have some fun. So we did that. My nephew and I were saddened by this moment, but we were going on with our day. And as we were walking back to the beach where we had the boys settled, and we sat on a very beautiful drift log that didn't have any bark on it or anything. And right behind this log was just a small area of sand. And we're talking about what a bummer it was that the boating day didn't happen, especially for this one individual that it was going to be pretty special for. And we were pretty sad about it. And as I'm talking, I glance back behind me. We did not see this little blue polished egg-shaped rock until I had glanced behind us, and we'd walked through the area, and I see this like it's like a polished rock, and it's this beautiful blue color, and it was shaped like a little robin egg. And he said he goes, we've been gifted. And I said, I think so. And I picked it up, and I still have it. We had our day, and we had our dinner, and before it got dark outside, we decided to take the boys on a little hike. And we were hiking on some trails, and I had been camped in the area for many, many years, but it had changed since I was a kid camping there. Some of the trails had changed. Some of them had been blocked off and ended. So we were on a trail that had ended, that used to go longer. But at the end of that trail, splayed out in front of us were 3 owl feathers, and they're beautiful. And he goes, we've been gifted again. And I felt that. And I said, well, pick them up and say thank you. And he did. The next morning, it was going to be our final day. And we were getting everybody packed up and helping them get their things packed up. We had several tents to do and encouraging the boys to get their own messes picked up. And it was kind of a chaotic time. But my nephew comes to me. He goes, my phone, I swear, he goes, I swear I wouldn't blame any of these boys to take my phone. He goes, it was on my car seat. I know it was, and I can't find it anywhere. I said, are you sure? Are you sure it was on the seat of your car? And he goes, I'm positive. I said, well, maybe you need to give a gift. And what's crazy about that is that I gave him a couple of granola bars and an apple. And I said, go put these where your heart feels they should go. And he goes, okay. He goes, I'll be back in a few minutes. And he came back, and not 5 minutes had gone by, and his phone was back in the seat of his car where he had left it. So, I'm can't say for sure it was Bigfoot because I never saw Bigfoot at that during that time. But there were quite a few woo-woo experiences during that camping trip that happened that we can't deny. So, so yeah, here in this wonderful state of Oregon, we have this opportunity to experience these things, and am ever so grateful.
Wow, those are some fascinating accounts. Thank you for sharing. I definitely have a few questions for you.
Okay. Okay.
So about the account that we just heard, that happened recently, correct?
That was last summer. Yeah.
Last summer. Okay.
Yeah.
And was it early summer or late summer?
Late summer. It was August.
Got it. And Green Peter Reservoir, that's up it's up by Sweet Home, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I've camped. I adore that area. That is like, I call that area my outdoors home. I just I became as a child, I lived in Snohomish, Washington. And we moved here when I think it was like, I was born here, but then we moved up there and lived for a while. And I think it was like third grade when we moved back. And my best friend was a neighbor. I met my best friend immediately after moving here, and her dad worked for BLM, and he helped design a lot of the logging roads and stuff that were up in the Green Peter area. He knew that area like the back of his hand. So, and they were campers, and I went with them every summer, all the way through my teenagers, and learned a lot from him about the area, and the creek above, the Quartzville Creek. And that's when I became such a rock hounder, because I was finding chunks of quartz crystal, and arrowheads were found, spearheads. One year, half of a stone bowl was found, and then going back the following year, the pestle was found to this stone bowl. I just feel a spiritual connection to the area. I get excited just talking about the area. There's an energy up there that is, I don't know, it just fuels me. I just love it. So I'm kind of surprised that I haven't experienced something sooner than this last year. I mean, like I said, I've experienced the feeling of being watched from the tree line, but I've always attributed that to, one of the animals that are up there. Usually it's like a wildcat or cougar or something like that. But I've always had dogs, and dogs have always been with us while we're camping too. So, but I never saw any weird behavior from my dogs up in that area. And which I should also mention, the night that I did experience the big splash, my dog wouldn't come with me out of my tent.
Okay.
And I didn't think much of it at the time. I just thought, okay, well, he's conking out with the rest of the family, I'm just going to leave him. But normally, if one of us were to leave an area, the dog would follow. It's a protective thing. But that night, the dog did not follow me. So that's just another little piece of information to add to that part of the story.
It's very interesting. And, I've talked to a few people from the Sweet Home area off record, not on the podcast. That area of Green Peter Reservoir there's a lot of things that happen up there, activity, encounters. That's definitely That's an area. Not surprised when you mentioned it. That area that you were camping, having these things happen. Was it near? Are you familiar with the area where the giant door is? Have you heard of that?
Yes, I am familiar. And you know what is so funny about that? You know that giant door? I've driven by that thing,
Yeah.
I don't know, hundreds of times and never really paid any attention to it. Because so in the area where that giant door is, you can see it from the road. And there's an area that a cliff, it's a very cliffy area. And on the lake side of the road, there's kind of an outlook point, and that's where we can begin to get cell phone service. Is if we've been camping up above, if we need to make a phone call or something, we have to go at least to that lookout point to get cell phone service to make a phone call. But if you turn around from that area where we make our phone call, you are looking right up at the giant door. And I never paid a whole lot of attention to it until the account of the former city councilman of Sweet Home saw what he saw that day. Yeah. So yeah, that's quite interesting.
Is that the same guy that was the guy who went viral on TikTok about it?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so same dude. Okay.
Yeah.
So very interesting. I'm sure that area just had tons of people trying to, and it's hard to get up to that area, that giant, like you have to.
Oh,
really,
if you were to get up, I mean, you'd have to, it's a climb. It would be a climb. It wouldn't be like, I mean, yeah, it's definitely would be a challenge to get up to that giant door for sure. The last time I looked at it, there was a piece of rope hanging from the area, and I thought, well, somebody has put that there so they could easily link up to it somehow to be able to climb to it easier. But I haven't heard much about the giant door since then, but it definitely looks like a doorway. I mean, the way that cliffside is. So I can't tell you in all the years that I've been up there, I can't tell you if it's always been there or not, because I never really paid attention to it until then. I always just saw it as a cliffside. But truly, when you look at it, it definitely looks like a door.
No, it really
That's very
does.
true.
It's, I was just,
Yeah.
I'm sure that everyone in that area was well aware of that once that became super viral. You made a few statements that were interesting, where you're talking about how energy change happens in certain areas.
Yes.
So, I mean, it sounds like you experienced that definitely in this Green Peter Reservoir area.
I do.
Yeah.
So I feel I don't know. The beauty of the place is incredible. The aquamarine color of the lake against the red clay sand and dirt, and then the emerald green of the trees is just so vibrant. And I don't know. It's where I go to be refueled. It's where I go. I don't know. The area excites me. I love it. I love the rock hounding. I love that, people go gold mining up there. People have gold mining claims up there. But there's an area of Quartzville Creek where it's still free. I mean, if you want to mess around and find your little flecks of gold, you still can. I don't know. Like I said, I have to have at least a couple of trips a year up there just to refuel, rejuve. I don't know. I feel like the area just feeds me. I just love it.
That's awesome. And I feel that it's important that everyone finds their equivalent. I mean, I have equivalent areas as well. Are there other areas that you've found that also kind of have that energy change for you as well?
Well, yeah. there's areas on the coast that I have felt that. There's, yeah, certainly I've been in, the redwoods are a place of beauty that just, I feel feeds me. And I just, when I'm in those areas, I just take in that energy. And like I said, I feel like it refuels me and enables me to come back home and do the day to day. And yeah, if I could afford to create a home up there, I certainly would. Certainly.
Absolutely.
But it's okay. I can still go there and get what I need.
I want to go back to the first account for a little bit.
Sure.
I think you mentioned this off air, but what approximate year did that take place?
So my son was 3 at the time. He is now 26. So it was 23 years ago.
Okay, so 2002 ish.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Cool. And we were also talking about this a little bit, but and I remember you were saying you don't know the exact area, but did you say it was kind of east of Eugene a little bit, or
south, yeah, possibly a little bit southeast.
Okay, but not.
It's in an area. It was in an area where there are several reservoirs,
right?
Or lakes. And I know that there's one called Fall Creek. This was not Fall Creek. It was a little bit south of that.
Okay,
I believe.
Yep, got it. So not quite to Oak Ridge, that area between Eugene and Oak Ridge, and there's a few water areas, a few lakes and things in that area. Okay, okay, very good. Let's.
And like I said, there were some small fires in that area that during that time, and I know for a fact that that's the only reason I experienced what I experienced. I don't believe that this thing would have been down that low or in an area where there was, we weren't the only campers there. It was, about halfway full, maybe. I just don't think that it would have been around had it not really needed respite from the fires.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's kind of the message I got from it. It was just like, I'm just taking care of myself, please, allow me in peace to take care of myself.
When you heard that voice, do you remember if the voice sounded a certain way, or
you mean the rumbling feeling, the sigh,
or when
I got that message?
Yeah.
No, it just clearly came into my mind. It wasn't really a voice that I heard. It just was a strong feeling message that just came over me. I didn't really hear a voice. It was just there. It was just a message. It just came into my mind. And that's what it was. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it. It was a message from that. I knew that was the message from this being that was standing there in the water. And I respected it. And like I said, I did not have a fear. I did not feel I was in danger. I just, and I did. I wanted to respect it, and that's exactly what I did.
Was that the first time you've experienced anything like that before?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Has anything like that ever happened since?
No. Like I said, the only thing that I've experienced anything near like that to that was the things that I experienced last summer.
Sure.
And it's so funny because I did ask for it. And so I'm going to be careful what I ask for when I'm preparing to go on these camping trips that I go on. And I'm going to be careful about what I ask for, and I'm going to be paying attention to who's going to be with me during those times, because I don't want anybody to be in fear. I don't want, but I do want to experience those experiences. I am intrigued by it. There is a pull to it. I don't know how to explain it. But once you have felt that vibration of energy, it's exciting. It's life affirming. It's I don't know how else to explain it. You just to know that there is more than just what meets the eye and meets your senses on the day to day, and to know that you can experience a different dimension, a different level of energy is, like I said, it's life affirming to me. It fuels me.
It really does. I can agree with you on that. It does draw whatever it is,
Yeah.
it does draw you back, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
I've had other people.
It's so
say
hard
that
to
as well.
explain. It's hard to explain. It's hard to, in the language that we have available to us currently. It's just hard to explain. I don't know how else to explain what the experience, but it does energize you. For sure.
I think the other thing you said, it is very smart as well. It's kind of a takeoff of how people say, be careful what you wish for, but it's also be careful what you ask for. And I think that is very, very telling. There have been a lot of people I've talked to recently where they've only had experiences when they've asked for it specifically, or they've been like, okay, I'm ready to have something happen. And then it's like, bam. And I think that's a very I don't know exactly how that works, but seems to be a very powerful thing. I don't know if it's a form of inviting something in, or
there's a lot of talk over the internet and just in media now about manifesting.
Sure.
And I think that in our lifetimes, there are things that happen to us, for us, that we can manifest things in our life, either negatively or positively, just depending on where your thinking is. And I've had, in my lifetime, I almost died. I had, woke up from an emergency surgery with an ostomy, with a colonoscopy, with an ostomy bag. And right then at that moment, I thought to myself, okay, I don't want to have to deal with this for the rest of my life. I don't want to have to live this way. And within that year, I was able to have a surgery to reverse that. I'm very, very fortunate. I know that a lot of people who've gone through that don't have the opportunity or aren't able to heal enough to be able to have that reversed, let alone within the first year. But at the moment I woke up from that surgery, I knew that I wasn't going to have this the rest of my life. And I was able to heal enough, stay in shape enough, get enough core strength in me, skeletal wise, to be able to get my body ready. So I'm a very lucky woman. I'm very fortunate. And, I'm 58 years old. I'm able to get out there and hike and camp and do all of the things that I have done throughout my life. And I'm going to do that as long as I can. Arthritis is coming in. I was formerly a massage therapist. My fingers don't allow me to do that like I would like to, but that's okay. I still lay my hands on people. They still feel that they're receiving healing. I don't know. You find ways or obstacles, and that's how I've lived my life. And just staying open to new ideas and new ways. Just because an obstacle hits you doesn't mean you have to stop. It just means you have to find a different way.
I love that. That mindset is so important in life in general. If there was an opportunity or you had the option to be able to have an experience with Bigfoot again, like you have in the past, would you choose to have that kind of experience again?
Oh, of course I would. Yeah, you bet I would. Absolutely. I think there's so many people that they live smaller lives because they haven't opened their minds to, I don't know if it's out of fear or just because of the way they were brought up or whatever it is. I feel like people limit themselves in their thinking. Therefore, they limit their life experiences. For whatever reason, I'm here and I'm living this life here. I feel like it's to experience the world, the dimension, whatever you want to call it, that I'm in. So that's what I'm going to do. And if the opportunity were to arise, you bet, absolutely, I would be open to that experience. I just feel like it just grows me more.
I totally agree with you, Yvonne. I hope you get to experience that again. But thank you so much for coming on the show tonight and for sharing what you've experienced over the years.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely, I think listeners will definitely be inspired by what you've shared tonight. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Just want to take a few minutes to say thank you to you, all my listeners, for listening to the podcast. Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's a list: the Subtle Lake area of Oregon, Rainbow, Oregon, McKinsey Bridge area, Sweet Home, pretty much that entire area, the north part, if you get what I mean. I'll see you back next time, listeners. Sasquatch Summerfest this year, July 11th through the 12th. It's going to be fantastic. July 11th through 12th in Green Waters Park in Oak Ridge, Oregon. And listeners, if you're going to go, you can get a 2-day ticket for the cost of one if you use the code BFS, like Bigfoot Society, but BFS, and it'll get you some off your cost. Priscilla was nice enough to provide that for my listeners. So there you go. I look forward to seeing you there. So make sure you head over to www.sasquatchsummerfest.com and pick up your tickets today.